Hi there and welcome back to Big Fish Little Fish Aquatics. So today we're back in the fish room and I just want to give you all a quick update on some of the plecos that I bought a couple of months ago. Now if you haven't seen that video, I'll put a card up here so you can go and watch that, and then you can come back here if you want to. And let's just get right into this video. So here are my L397 Plecos. I've actually put my light on very bright at the moment, so I've kind of spooked them. And that's just so you can actually see the aquarium, because if you take a look at my snowball pleco just to the left, that's how I normally have the lights on my pleco tanks, keep them nice and dim so I don't stress them out. So if you remember back to the video that I shared about 2 months ago now, where I got hold of 6 L397 Plecos, well, I put a little comment at the top of that video, because on the day that actually 3 of those plecos arrived, there were signs on those new plecos that something wasn't quite right. They did not add up and did not look like L397 Plecos, or at least as I would expect them to look. Now before we go in any further, I just want to make sure I give my plecos here some food, and hopefully they'll come out during this video. So I've got hold of a courgette, and essentially I'm just going to attach it to this screw cumber, is what this thing is called, but you could use anything like a fork or something like that. Most people do that. Just screw that on there. So those 3 plecos that I received, they looked slightly different, and this is a real big problem for when you're trying to, I guess, especially breed Plecosmus catfish, is that sometimes even wholesalers and shops will be given the wrong species or send you the wrong species. And essentially what happened was they had actually sent me another member of the Penaclus family, Penaclus tanke, and that is L398. Upon receiving them, I took a look at their heads and I was like, well, these lines, they're not as close together as I'd expect for a 397. The head has normally got very tight knitted worm lines, I guess you could call them, on the front of their head. And then the body itself, it was more of a creamy colour rather than the orange coloration that you would expect from the 397. So what I've done is I actually waited. I waited a couple of days just to monitor them and see whether they coloured up as expected. And essentially by the next day, it was pretty clear to me that they weren't 397 Plecos, so I got right in touch with the supplier. And for the purpose of this story, I'm not going to actually call out their name or anything like that, because I'll carry on and you'll understand why they actually handled the situation really well. But I don't want to call them out as if to say that they've done anything wrong. I think it was just an honest mistake. So essentially I got hold of the supplier, and they quickly identified that they had sent me the wrong fish. Their rationale was that they had some 397s in stock, which have come from Brazil, and they weren't of a good size to send out to customers. But what they should have done is contact me to inform me of that, and instead they actually just sent me another species. Which obviously, if you're trying to breed plecos, that's not ideal. They may as well have sent me a piranha, because the 398s were of no use to me in this aquarium here. So the supplier, they were really good, really professional. They understand that they had made a mistake, and they quickly sent me out some more 397s. Now the ones they sent me are actually a lot smaller, and they're very young fish. You can see one right now just coming out of the hide there, so you can see how small they are. I'd wager they're probably around 4 or 5 months old maybe, and so they're very small plecos, which they've sent out to me, but they sent me an extra one as a goodwill gesture. And what I've actually had to do, so I actually moved the 398s up into this aquarium here. So the 397s, the new ones which I received, I moved in. They went into this aquarium originally once they were going through quarantine, and once I was happy that they're looking well, the little ones, they've now moved out in with the other group, so they're now one big group of 7. And then I moved the 398s out from with the 397s into this aquarium here. So these are Pinaculus tankae. There's one underneath the rock just there, and you know, at first glance they're very similar fish. There's nothing wrong with them, they're lovely little fish, but obviously if you're trying to breed Plecostomus, you don't want to keep members of the same species and not species, so same family in the same aquarium, because they can hybridize. One fish you'll probably notice in here, which is not my 398, is the one waggling its tail right now. That's my Bristlenose Pleco. So unfortunately the Bristlenose Pleco was living with my goldfish, and it had been for probably about a year and a half quite happily. However, I came into my fish room the other day, well, I say the other day, about 2 weeks ago now, and my Bristlenose Pleco had attacked my goldfish, and there was its scales were coming off. It's showing clear signs of a Plecostomus or sucker mouth catfish attack, and they can, you know, develop a taste for other fish's scales. Specifically Goldfish is one which Bristlenose Plecos have been known to do, and unfortunately my one has done so. She's quite a bossy Pleco, really. So she's been moved out and she's now living in here with the 398s. So here's my goldfish. There you can see much better spirits. He or she is swimming around very happily now with the Ranchu. The fins have healed quite well. And I'm not entirely sure if the Pleco actually attacked the fins as well, but I think what essentially happened is, if she would stay still, as you can see on the sides here, that's a Pleco wound, and there's one on this side as well. It's almost perfect on both sides, and so the scales were all ripped off, and he or she was looking pretty battered. And once I moved the Pleco out, I added a bit of salt into the aquarium, because the first thing that happens when you get fish which have wounds or open sores is they're going to most likely get infected. So you've got to keep the water clean, and then start to keep the wound area clean as well. So I added a little bit of aquarium salt just to help keep the wound clean. And then the next day I noticed that there was a little bit of fungus starting to build up, so I added in some Isha 2000, and that stuff's great for, you know, sorting out tail, fin rot, fungus infections. So just one little cycle of Isha 2000. After the cycle, I gave the tanker another quick water change, and as you can see, she doesn't look great, but the fins have all healed up. The wound has healed up, so now it's just a case of on the road to recovery. So making sure that well fed, but not overfed, keep the water clean, and there should be no problems at all. It's been a couple of weeks now since the attack, should I say, from the Pleco, and all is going well. Yeah, so the moral of the story really is here. Just make sure that you're aware and conscious of the species of fish that you're purchasing, as you can get caught out. And mistakes do happen from suppliers, wholesalers, you name it, and you may be sent to the wrong species of fish. And it can happen. There's so many Plecos that look the same. There's many Hypencistrus species which look very similar. Some Baryancistrus, they look quite similar. Pinaculus, they look quite similar. Pecultia, you know, I could keep going through. You know, even the Hypostomus plecostomus, the original Pleco, a lot of the fish which are sold as the common Plecostomus are actually not Hypostomus plecostomus. So you've got to be really careful, especially if you're trying to breed fish, to make sure that you are definitely getting the strain that you're after. 397, real simple way of telling that you've got the fish. I'll try and show it on these guys, but I think they're quite small, so you may not pick it up. But essentially they have a real defined worm line head. It's really tight lines which are going on the head, and then they've got their black bars and orange stripes. Now when they're younger, they're much brighter, so it's very clear to tell when they're a young fish. As they get older, they start to get a bit more dull, but one thing that is always there on the 397 is on the fins. You can clearly see that the fins have a orangey reddy bar, and then between the orangey reddy bar and the black bar they have a white creamy band in between. So that's how you can always make sure that you're aware that you've got a 397 and not potentially an imposter like I did with the 398s. And the Pinaculus tanke, they're really nice fish. You know, when they colour up, they're not as bright as the 397s, but you know, they're just as nice. They're a little bit larger of a pleco, so there's no reason why they're not a good pleco to have, but it's just obviously in this situation I was after 397 because they're the fish that I've chosen to try and breed in this setup here. So I hope you've enjoyed the video today. Just a real quick update on the 397s. As always, have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next one.